Before we begin, subscribe to Epigrams, because today we are exploring something almost everyone can experience at some point in life: an identity crisis. What happens when the person you thought you were no longer feels like the person you are becoming? What happens when your beliefs, ambitions, relationships, values, or directions suddenly stop making sense? An identity crisis is not simply being confused about your life. It is a period of deep questioning about your sense of self. Who you are, what you believe, what you value, and where you are going. The concept of identity crisis is strongly associated with psychologist Erik Erikson, who described identity development as an important part of psychological growth. Identity develops through experiences, relationships, choices, culture, responsibilities, and reflection. During certain periods of life, the identity we have built can be challenged by major transitions or contradictions. You may graduate, change careers, lose a relationship, move somewhere new, question your beliefs, experience failure, or simply realize that the life you are living no longer reflects who you are. But here is the important part: an identity crisis does not necessarily mean something has gone wrong. Sometimes, confusion is evidence that your old identity is no longer large enough for the person you are becoming. The discomfort can force you to examine assumptions you previously accepted without question. Instead of immediately trying to escape the uncertainty, use it as an opportunity to ask deeper questions. What do I genuinely value? What am I doing because I want to? And what am I doing because I am expected to? To apply the lessons of an identity crisis constructively, begin by separating your identity from your circumstances. Your job is something you do. Your possessions are things you own. Your achievements are things you accomplished. Your social role is something you perform. None of these automatically represents the entirety of who you are. When one part of your life changes, your entire sense of self does not have to collapse with it. Next, examine the beliefs that define you. Write down statements beginning with "I am" and "I believe," then question each one. Where did this belief come from? Is it still useful? Did you choose it consciously? Would you still believe it if you had grown up somewhere completely different? This exercise can reveal the difference between an identity you deliberately built and an identity you simply inherited. An identity crisis can also teach you the value of experimentation. You do not need to know exactly who you are before you begin exploring. Try new skills, read different ideas, meet different people, create something, travel when possible, change your routine, take on responsibilities that challenge you. Every experience provides information about what energizes you, what matters to you, and what no longer fits. Identity is not always discovered through thinking. Sometimes it is constructed through action. One of the greatest advantages of an identity crisis is self-awareness. When everything feels stable, you may never question the foundations of your life. But when those foundations are shaken, hidden assumptions become visible. You may discover that some of your goals were chosen primarily for approval, some relationships were maintained out of fear, or some ambitions were inherited from other people's expectations. That realization can be uncomfortable, but it can also be liberating. Another advantage is adaptability. A rigid identity says, "This is who I am, and I can never change." A flexible identity says, "This is who I am right now, and I am capable of becoming something more." This flexibility is valuable because life constantly changes. Careers change, relationships change, bodies change, circumstances change, your knowledge changes. A person who can update their self-concept without losing their core values can navigate change with greater resilience. An identity crisis can also improve your decision-making. When you understand your values, decisions become less dependent on pressure from other people. Instead of asking, "What will make everyone approve of me?" you can ask, "Does this decision align with the person I want to become?" That shift moves you from external validation toward internal direction. You may still care about other people's opinions, but they no longer have complete control over your choices. There is also a deeper lesson. You are not required to remain loyal to an outdated version of yourself. Maybe you used to be afraid of speaking. Maybe you once believed you could never succeed. Maybe you followed a path simply because everyone expected it. Growth sometimes requires disappointing the identity that kept you comfortable. You can respect your past without allowing your past to dictate your future. However, an identity crisis should not be romanticized. Prolonged confusion, severe distress, inability to function, or persistent feelings of disconnection from yourself can be signs that you need support rather than simply thinking harder. Talking with a trusted person or qualified mental health professional can help you navigate difficult periods safely. Self-exploration is powerful, but you do not have to navigate every crisis alone. Ultimately, an identity crisis is important because it can become a turning point between living by default and living deliberately. It forces you to confront the question that sits underneath so many other questions. Who am I, and who do I want to become? You may not discover one permanent answer. Perhaps identity is not a statue that you uncover. It is more like a living structure that you continually build, revise, and strengthen through your choices. The crisis is not necessarily the destruction of who you are. Sometimes it is the beginning of becoming more consciously yourself. If this video helped you understand identity, transformation, and the deeper questions behind who we become, subscribe to Epigrams. Keep questioning your assumptions, keep examining your mind, and never be afraid to rebuild an identity that truly reflects the person you are becoming.